Drupal being one of them. I'm also an adjunct trainer with Acquia and Blink, which are two leading companies that are driving a lot of the high-end Drupal work in the market today. We'll talk a little bit about Acquia in a little bit. And I do a lot of work on the side with Drupal. I've been spending a lot of time with it lately. I've been involved with the community for about 6 years now. Honestly, I've been so deep into Drupal lately that I haven't really put my head up too much to look at other CMSs, but I can speak on them a little bit, mostly in the open source space. I was kind of scrambling a little bit looking at Sitecore before this talk today, to see if I can get any chops up, but I wasn't too successful. So what is Drupal? As I said, Drupal is a content management system. It's written in PHP. It's not .NET. It runs on top of the LAMP stack, so you can have your Linux, your Apache, your MySQL, and PHP. It's completely modular, and this is one of the real strengths of the system, is the fact that everything is modular. Out of the box, you're not getting much. You want to plug in the thousands of modules that exist in the community. And there's a very, very large community of contributors right now, and it's growing at a very fast pace. It seems to be disrupting a lot of different industries that are coming to us, specifically the government sector, nonprofit. They're deploying some really large websites that we'll take a look at. And that's really what kind of attracted me to Drupal, was besides the cool technology that cool problems you can solve with it, is the vibrant community of people. And in the forums and in the meetups and the camps that happen all over the place, it's pretty cool. You guys seem cool too. So there's about 15,000 modules on Drupal.org today. There's 2,000 themes, so you can make your site look all different all over the place. And there's 16,000 contributing developers on the site today. I actually think that number is a little bit bigger. Those are figures I got right off of Drupal.org. And a very important piece of this too is that it's not just us techies that are diving into the code to solve the problems. A lot of stuff can get solved outside of the code just using the UI. And we'll look a little bit into that in a couple of slides. So a little bit of history about Drupal. Drupal is not a new technology. It was open sourced in 2001 by an individual by the name of Dries Buyter. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. We're now in the 7th release of the content management system. And every release, a lot of changes usually roll into the system, which is a good thing and kind of a bad thing if you have legacy sites and say Drupal 5 and Drupal 6. But for the most part, there's an upgrade path between the releases. There's strong commercial leadership, not as strong as Microsoft, but there's strong commercial leadership from a company by the name of Acquia, which was founded by Dries. And they're taking the approach, which I think is a pretty cool approach, where they're not offering Drupal services. They will not develop a solution for you. They leverage a large partner network that lets the partners do a lot of the work. And they've wrapped a bunch of services around it. And I think this is kind of the pattern you're going to see in open source business models, is they're not making that much money on software, so to say. You're not buying a license for Drupal. You can download it at Drupal.org. You can play with it right now. But when you want to modify it, you want to craft it to your liking, if you're using it for a large commercial project, you're probably going to want nice support, talented developers, and really have that ability to craft it to the need that you're trying to fill. And I think Drupal addresses those needs on all fronts. And Acquia has a bunch of services for like workflow for your development team, for source code management, Git repositories, and putting up staging environments and pushing it out to production and all that stuff. So what can you build with Drupal? What problems can you solve? And I think a lot of the problems you can solve with Drupal, you probably can solve with most of the other content management systems in the market. The kind of mantra with Drupal is we're trying to keep the core of Drupal as light as possible. So out of the box, you download Drupal off of Drupal.org, you install it. There's really not much going on. You can't really do much, and that's on purpose. So by default, you're able to design content types. So I can have various different types of content types. We can almost think of content types as objects if you're developing in, say, an object-oriented programming language like C# or something like that. And then we can field our content types and say, I want a first name and a last name field and an address field. This is all done in the GUI, right out of the box with Drupal. Then once you have that accomplished, you can organize your content using different, we call vocabularies or tagging systems. If you ever use the website Delicious, bookmarking site, and a lot of other sites implement this where you can kind of tag your content. So I have like a tag like cool stuff, I can tag a website cool stuff. This aspect of the system has gained the attention of a lot of large libraries. The New York City Public Library is running on Drupal. So if you go to that site, you can search their entire catalog of books using the Drupal CMS. And a lot of librarians have kind of flocked to this because of the strengths that you have in categorizing all the content that you're creating. Now, once you have that, you're able to expose your content to your users in various different ways. You can have different display modes. And you can say, I want to display a teaser of my content that should include the first name and the last name. And now I want to display the full content that has the first name, last name, address, and any other information you want to display. So again, all this is done, no programming involved. Developers don't really need to get involved here. Then the last aspect of this is managing your users, which I think we all expect out of systems like this, where you have users, you can manage groups of users, and you can associate permissions to all of those users. This is kind of core stuff that we all expect in a content management system today. So let's look at a couple of sites that have been developed with Drupal, and a lot of them are pretty high-profile sites. So, as I said before, government seems to be flocking to Drupal. The U.S. House of Representatives just put out a guidance document to pretty much everybody involved with the House of Representatives saying you're free to choose whoever you want to use for web development, but you got to use Drupal. So these guys, they're all standardized on Drupal, and the exciting part about this is that it's a bunch of small companies that are competing for all of this business, and it's a very vibrant ecosystem right now. That even though it's open source and it's free, there's people making a lot of money doing this right now. And the WhiteHouse.gov is a great example that we love to show off, and obviously we all know what it is. They've built it on, I believe it's on Drupal 6, and it's a pretty large site. It's up today, and it seems to be running well. Another one is Grammy.com, another very popular Drupal site. I'm a geek, I don't really get down with the Grammys too much, but as Drupal developers are usually on the site refreshing it every 2 seconds on that day to see if it stands up, because I think this is a great testament to the scalability of Drupal. You would imagine that on the night of the Grammys, this site is getting pounded. And it is, and it hasn't been all beautiful. I mean, years back, I think they had a couple of problems with scalability, and it did kind of hiccup a little bit. But recently, it's been pretty good. Another one is, I don't know if we got any golfers in the room. You got any golfers? No? Nobody golfs here? Oh, man. All right. Well, that's a bad slide there. Struck out on that one. Well, PGA.com is a Drupal site. I should back up a little bit. I wanted to start this out with how many people here actually use Drupal? Anybody? One person? 2 people? Okay, great. So we're this is good then. Okay, good. Now it's important to note that all the sites I just showed you, they're great sites. They scaled well. These guys didn't just download Drupal, install it, play around with it on their desktop, obviously, and then run it. They're using custom themes, they're using custom modules, and they're probably using a collection of contributed modules. And they're also probably leveraging a very strong partner to accomplish a lot of these things with them. So that leads me into modules. Modules are the lifeblood of Drupal right now. And this is, I think, one of the main reasons why Acquia took the stance of not wanting to get into the development aspect of this, because they don't want to sour the community that exists today. Because if they do that, we're going to go to a different content management system. So contributed modules, there's thousands of them. Drupal.org hosts all of the projects. There's issue queues for every project that's out there. They host all of the version repositories in Git, which is an open source version control system that we all use in the Drupal community. And it's pretty cool. I mean, we're posting patches like crazy. I think they were just talking about some pretty large numbers about the number of patches that are getting submitted daily right now, and there's a lot. So we're all building this up simultaneously. There's people working on this right now as we speak, for all different things, for all different problems that they're trying to solve for their clients. And that's what really excites me to open source, is the fact that we're able to come together as a community and solve our individual problems for our individual interests. Right? I mean, we want to make money doing what we're doing. I'm not trying to say we should just all give away our software, but then we contribute it back, and now we can build better things because we're all standing on each other's shoulders. So it's this kind of iterative development that happens completely decentralized. And I think Drupal, as time goes on, you're going to hear more and more about how Drupal is really driving a lot of that, just like the Linux kernel did in many respects. I mean, Linux is a little bit popular right now, right? So with that being said, I'm touting that it's great, it's great, it's great. At the same time, we've got a lot of modules that are in the system. I'm to blame as well. I have a module on there that's just terrible right now. I spend no time on it. It's not very usable. So there's a lot of code out there that just isn't good. And you know, it's the job of us as we're evaluating our CMS to see what stage of development's at. Is it going to really fit my need? It may sound like it's going to fit my need, but then once I download this module and install it, it just blows up my site. So that's out there, and you gotta be aware of that. So I want to look at a couple of really popular modules that are out there today. Views being one of them. How many people here use SQL to query their databases? I would assume everybody that writes database-driven applications, unless you're using IBM's query tools, which it's like 1972. But so Views is a visual SQL builder for Drupal. It allows us to build queries against our Drupal database and output the results of those queries in a bunch of different ways. So I could say, give me all the contacts in my database, first name and last name, and display them in an unordered list, or display them in a grid, or display them in an HTML table. This tool is extremely powerful. You can pass in parameters, so you can modify the where clauses in your SQL queries. And there's a full-blown API just for this module that people are extending this module. So